Hi friends, so I feel it is time to do a video about my Kenilworth half marathon that was last week. Quick backstory is always hated running, never been good at running, but I've always loved sport, good at most sports, especially ball sports, team sports, all that sort of thing. But running I never got into, and some things that have happened over the last year may have explained that. But what happened was about 3 years ago, 2019 I think it was, I actually sort of January the 1st type of thing, said I was going to run a half marathon in 2019, and it was kind of a mindset training exercise, nothing to do with fitness or health or anything really. It was just that I knew running was something I hated, training for it would be awful, and actually doing it would be something really difficult. So it was about a mindset and discipline sort of thing. And yeah, I tried to train for it, but just kept getting in so much pain from running. And that's what I've always experienced, is leg pain from running. And yeah, ended up hardly doing any training runs. I can talk about that in another video because I've got all the stats for it. And ended up really doing it off the fly. And actually my goal was to do a half marathon without walking. And I actually did that, and it was the most pain I've ever experienced, certainly voluntarily. And it was painful the whole way, and it was very emotional when I finished, because I kind of saw some things about myself and about the mind that I'd never seen before. And then anyway, I guess we had the pandemic and such like, and I didn't want to run anymore. But during the pandemic I sort of had the feeling, oh, I'm going to do that again. And again I sort of started doing some training for it, was getting pain in my legs, sort of having to not train because of pain in the ankles, calves, knees especially, sort of mostly lower leg, but hips as well. And yeah, I did the half marathon a year ago, and again it was pretty terrible. I was one of the last to finish. Both of those two were like 2 hours 45 minutes. The maximum time allowed is 3 hours. And if you think that loads of people are doing that for a full marathon, you can appreciate how slow it is. That one I did more run walk sort of thing, rather than this attitude of the first one that was that I wasn't going to walk at all. And basically it was about the same time. And yeah, a full month to recover from it in the legs. And it was then a year ago that I kind of thought, after a month of recovery and trying to get my legs working again, like I was really in a lot of pain, that running kind of hit me as a impact goal for me, that this could be an impact goal that could pull me health wise, body wise, in the right direction, and actually give me a really good health, help me have a good health span. So it's one thing like having a great lifespan and living a long time, but one of my mentors always talks about the marginal years, which is like your last 5 or 10 years of life. If I stay unhealthy, unfit, unstrong in my legs, let's say weak in my legs, then what are those last 5, 10 years going to be like? If I become a grandparent, what am I going to be like with my grandchildren if I can't get up and down off the floor and stuff, and if my legs aren't strong? So it's kind of like an impact goal. It pulled a lot of my life together. And yeah, so what happened then was, that was kind of November last year, so like 9 months ago, I said what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim at doing a 100-mile ultra marathon. And that is like so far off in the distance, but that's going to be what pulls me and focuses my training. So that's like an impact goal. It's one of those things that I appreciate might never happen, but it's something I really want to do. And my training and lifestyle is kind of not completely around that, but my training is really. So I decided to start training for it again. Started getting pain. I found out about the Maffetone method and zone 2 heart training, all this sort of thing, and realizing that I'd got to build up my aerobic base, because that was what was really terrible for me, was my aerobic base, because I'd never really done any endurance training. So I joined a couple of like Facebook groups and started finding out more about zone 2, the Maffetone method. So that's MAF method is maximum aerobic function. It's like a heart rate where if you stay below that and keep training there, it helps your aerobic system build and build and build, whereas when you keep going beyond it, you're not training that so well. More videos about that as well, I suppose. But I just kept getting injured, or too much pain. I kept getting so much pain that I couldn't go out and run again for ages, and it was really hard to keep the motivation going. Until one day, actually my daughter was seeing a podiatrist about an issue she's had with her ankle, and I asked him his opinion on it, and he had a look, and he saw that I had a leg imbalance, a fairly significant leg imbalance. It's quite a common thing. And he said that he noticed that my right leg was kind of bent inwards at the knee because it was longer, to try and keep the hips level so that the back is straight. The leg is compensating, so the muscles in my leg, and particularly the Achilles tendon, was sort of bent out of shape as well. And that was why I was getting the pain. And the thing was, I've got to 50, I was 50 at the time, no, 51 at the time, and never really noticed because I just got pain running and stopped, and never really thought that was the problem, and not really done enough endurance work to find out. So his initial thing was to prescribe me orthotic insoles for my shoes to level up the balance, and I got those, I think it was in the beginning of April this year. And then it was like a rehab from there. So basically trying to make my muscles strong in the correct position now. Sort of the long-term aim being that if I ever don't have my insoles with me, which I will kind of need them forever because the leg is always going to be shorter, that I could get the strength in the right position so that if I've ever forgotten my insoles or whatever, or don't have them, that the strength is there in the right position. And of course now, working in those positions, new positions, there isn't strength there, so it was going to be painful again. So I had to build up slowly. Started building up slowly, was doing all right, and then probably pushed it too much, and it really was not much. So I want to emphasize that is that yes, I pushed it too hard, but I was being mega careful. Like I was impressed with how I was managing to lay back off the training and not push myself. So I was just walking most of the time. Then I tried a run, and this was a good couple of months after I got the insoles, and it was okay. Did another one, and I'm literally talking 2 miles of jog walk, like really slow in zone 2. So that's like 14-minute miles for me. I'm telling you, that's how bad I am at running. In zone 2, I'm doing 14-minute miles. I can obviously do faster than that if I go above zone 2, but not for long, and it's not much faster than that, to be honest. Yeah, then I started getting some knee pain, and I'd run out of when you go back to see, when I was going back to see the podiatrist who gave me the orthotic insoles, I was going back for reviews and to change the rehab and make sure everything was going all right, and I'd run out of the sessions that I'd got with him. So I went to see a chiropractor and a physio. Chiropractor wasn't much use to me. He was trying to sort stuff out with my back and whatever, so there was a few more things we found, issues with the back, which I may need to address to get to the 100 miles, but not at the moment. And after 2 appointments with them, I was like, well, you haven't really mentioned my knee yet, which is what I came for. And so I kind of deaf them, but I got an appointment with a sports physio as well. And he was brilliant. He gave me a look over, and he was like, look, you haven't got a problem with your knee. It's literally that you are come back to training too fast. And I want to emphasize again, I did it really slowly. So I don't want you to think, oh yeah, well you kind of, if you do go back too fast, that's what happened. I was really careful about this. And so he said, no, you got to go slower. And he focused on, we'd noticed by now with the chiropractor as well that my hip flexors are just like solid, hamstring solid, lower back solid, all these parts of my legs have like, there's no mobility, no flexibility at all. So it's almost went then to forget strength, forget endurance in the legs. We need to build up mobility, stability, and then maybe move on to strength and conditioning. Now the trouble was, I'd sort of set the Kenilworth half marathon, which was last Sunday, as my initial sort of stepping stone to the 100 miles. So like I had this very loose description of half marathon this year, full marathon next year, 50 mile of the year after, 100 mile of the year after that. And I fully appreciate how unlikely that was, but that was kind of the stepping stones I had in mind, and not necessarily over a year, but that's just something I had in mind. So yeah, this was the first stepping stone, was this half marathon. And I was looking at, you know, I'd done 2 in 2 hours 45 minutes-ish before, thinking, well, if I train and get my training right, I'll be able to do something like a 2-hour 15 and really focus on it. But obviously, I couldn't train. And I wasn't able to do much aerobic work either, because even on the rower and the exercise bike, I was getting little bits of knee pain, Achilles pain, just because I'm starting to operate in new positions. So anyway, the physio gave me the stability exercises basically every day, do those for a few weeks, come back and see him again, and see how we can progress with those, and then look to build strength in the future. But I still wanted to do this half marathon. Physio was kind of like, his words were, I never tell anyone not to do that, you know, not to do something, but my advice is a bit too soon. But if you're going to do it, we've got some new running shoes, like real suited to my insole and everything like that. So I think they're called neutral running shoes. Most people buy stability running shoes to help them get stability in the foot, but my orthotic insole's already doing that, so I needed neutral ones. And then I've actually got very narrow feet for the size of my feet, so they're long and short, long and thin. So then I have to say they were so helpful at Warwick Sports with the shoes, getting their running shoes. I think I tried on about 15 pairs before we got the right ones. So we did that, stick with the mobility, and I kind of didn't have to promise him, but the promise was that I would aim to get round just in the 3-hour time limit and jog walk all the way around, and really look after my legs and look after my aerobic capacity. But that wasn't really the issue. It was looking after my legs. So yeah, so that was last Sunday, and it came to it, and still the day before I didn't really know whether I was going to do it or not. Like, I felt like I would do it, but if I got one little niggle in my legs, I wasn't going to do it. And I did it. And like, to kind of sum up what happened before going into some of the data, I aimed for the 3-hour mark, which is when they start opening the roads up to traffic again. And I'd worked it out. I needed to do 13-minute 44-second miles, so a pace of 13 minutes 44 seconds per mile, to get round with something like 4 seconds to spare. So I'd written that in big felt tip marker on my hand, on the back of my left hand. 13-minute 44 seconds per mile equals 3. And I did it with 19 seconds to spare. So I was absolutely elated with that, and absolutely elated that I got in with no injury type pain. So yes, my legs were aching a little bit, but certainly not anything like the 2 I'd done before. And bearing in mind I was 15 minutes slower than the ones I'd done before, so that's like a whole minute a mile slower. I was great. I finished really strong, and I got over the finish line, felt pretty good. I was tired because of weak aerobic fitness, and but yeah, talking to people afterwards this time, calves started to like seize up pretty quickly, which is probably just standard for most people who've pushed themselves. But yeah, totally different to normal. Normally, like, after the 2 I'd done before, I literally didn't speak to anyone for an hour after the first one, maybe longer than that. Could hardly move, was very emotional as well. And then the second one, I was pretty similar as well, actually. Kids were there, and I was just like, I didn't like them seeing me in so much pain. So yeah, I did it with 19 seconds to spare. So let's have a look at some of the data here. So let's put the binoculars on. Hopefully you can see this now on your screen. So there you can see the sort of map of the run. And there's the average pace, 13 minutes 43 seconds per mile. And there you can see I did it with literally 19 seconds to spare, 13.1 miles, Kenilworth half marathon. So let's have a look at heart rate. So the plan was, this was my plan in the run, because like the day before, I didn't really know how I was going to go about this, because I wasn't even sure I was going to do it. And I decided to use heart rate and try and keep my heart rate at my MAF number, my MAF tone number, which is my MAF tone number is actually 124, but I was fine letting it go to, I just went for 130, and I thought I'm going to keep it below that, and I'd set my watch to alert me every time it went around 130 and over, so that I could make sure I walked then. So here's the heart rate graph. As you can see, I was trying to keep it below this 130 for a long time at the start of the race. And I was struggling to keep it down, which was really bizarre because I was walking a lot. Now, probably just like the excitement of doing it, there was a lot of crowds there, seeing people I know and stuff like that. And it was just great to be out there. I was really enjoying myself. But I was walking a lot of this and my heart rate was going up to 150, 140 all the time. And I was just like so determined to get round and do it the right way that I walked a lot of this. In fact, if I could just overlay pace here for a second, you can see that the grey is the pace and how slow I'm going here, like 16-20 miles. Can you see that there? 16 minutes 30 seconds per mile. That is my walking pace a lot of the time there. So yeah, I was struggling to keep it down and having to walk lots, and within no time at all I was into last place. And it was a bit of a pain because there was an ambulance, which is fantastic that that's there obviously, and two marshals, and they were right up my butt for the first 6 miles. I was kind of thinking of asking them to drop back 50 metres because I kind of felt with the ambulance that it was just waiting for me to keel over and throw me in the back. But yeah, it was kind of weird having them so close. But I was really proud of myself afterwards because I maintained the discipline to stay in that last place and not like there was a lady 50 metres ahead of me, something like that, 50 to 100 metres ahead of me. And I could have gone up and gone past her and let her have the problem of the ambulance behind her. But I decided, no, heart rate's what it is what you're sticking to, keep it down. And I just kept it down, and I'd set myself, I was kind of thinking halfway, but 6 miles isn't quite halfway, but I was kind of thinking at 6 miles, I'm going to look at the pace and the situation and see where I'm at. So this is when you will see that my heart rate sort of goes up. You can see the average here is higher than the average here. So I looked at my watch at this point here and realised my average pace, I don't think I can do it, yeah, lap average pace might do it. My average pace, if you look on the right edge of the graph here, you've got like 14 minutes. So after these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 miles, my average pace was over 14 minutes. It was like 14 minutes 20, I think it was. So that meant that I wasn't going to get round in time. So obviously at that point I made the decision to let my heart rate go up, and I thought, right, I'm going to let it go up to the sort of 150 mark, and then when I see it get there I'm going to walk again and let it come down and do that for a couple of miles. So this sort of happened at this sort of 6.1 mile mark. So it sort of says 5.9 there, but that's when it was about 6.1 miles. And I quickly caught up the lady in front of me and felt comfortable doing that. The pace picked up a bit. Grey now is my heart rate, and the blue line is my average pace for that mile. So yeah, let the heart rate go up, and yeah, let it sort of go up to 150, and then we'd let it, and then walk again. And I overtook that lady, put in like a 13-minute 14 miles, so that was good. But I still thought at this point, 13-minute 14, bearing in mind I needed 13:44 to get in time, wasn't going to quite catch me up. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll put in 3 or 4 of those, and then with a couple of miles to go, see what I've got to do then. But I was so determined to keep enough in the tank to get in and not get injured, because I realised that if I got a twinge in my Achilles, calf, knee, foot, hip, that I would probably have to stop. So yeah, I overtook that lady there almost straight away, pulled her in, had a quick chat with her, and then there was another lady I caught not long after that, and basically went past 3 ladies in this sort of area here, and yeah, I didn't think I was going to see anyone else after that. There was quite good vision on that part around here, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to overtake anyone else, that's fine. But to be honest, it was just running my own thing. It didn't matter about overtaking anyone. As I said, I spent 6 miles basically in last place. I think at this stage, yeah, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, if I can just maintain this, I'm going to get in, because my watch shows average pace over the whole race. So I put in 1, 2, 3 at sort of 13:12s. This one's just a bit lower because I think I stopped for a loo break there. But yeah, I put in a 12:56, that's right, 13:14, a 12:56, a 13:12, and I started to think, yeah, that's okay. If I can keep these up and maybe do a little bit of a quicker one, then I will get in time. And now it's just a case of really getting in. Somewhere around here, I saw a man running up in front of me, a long way in front. And I thought, oh, that's cool. If I catch him, I won't be the last mile in the race. And because I felt good, I was pretty sure that I'd be able to catch him up as long as I could not experience like a minor twinge that in any of those, in either of my legs that would make me want to stop. So I think this one's a little bit slower, 13:28, which is still faster than the 13:44 because I took a low break in there. And then I put in a 12:36 on mile 11 to 12. Yeah, on mile 11 to 12, I put a 12:36. I'd gone past him and I was actually feeling really strong. This mile here actually had a real nasty couple of uphills in it. Saying that, had a nice downhill in it as well. But yeah, still put a 13:05 in there. So actually, you know, much faster second half of the race. We don't generally, most of the advice I've read is not to try and run negative splits, which means a faster second half of the race, but to have enough in the tank to feel like that's what you're doing. But that's not what actually happens because of feeling tired. And yeah, you know, finish really strong. You can see my heart rate's up high here in the sort of 156s. And I thought once there was 1 mile to go, I could let it go up to 160, which is, you know, quite high for a 51-year-old guy. But it wasn't, you know, it was with 2 miles to go. I let it go right up and above 160. So yeah, I was absolutely thrilled to bits with that. Let's just see if there's anything else of interest. Yeah, I don't know if this is interesting. This is just the pace graph. But what is semi-interesting to me is that when I was actually in my running mode, it's nearly always the same sort of pace I get to before I stop, which is like a 10-minute kind of pace at the top of these peaks on the graph, like 10-minute 20, 10-minute 20, one of 9:53, one there, that'll be on that big downhill. Yeah, so it's always the same. It's just that I was having to walk a lot more in these bits to let my heart rate get back down. And then once I allowed it to go up, it was run, walk, run, walk. But you can see that's what I've done through the whole way. It's run, walk, run, walk. Yeah, so I'm not sure there's anything more to look at in the data there. Obviously, as I keep saying, I'm so chuffed with how I managed to stick to the plan. And, you know, the year before when I did it, I kind of had a bit of a plan like that to go at a low pace. And I just got into the moment. I also got kind of cramped in a few crowds. So I ran past them. And it actually took me longer to find a little open space than I thought it would. And there was lots of people there. And I sort of did the first sort of mile, maybe mile and a half in a lot quicker time than I would have liked. And I really paid for that because I didn't then spend a long time getting my heart rate down and recovering in that race. Whereas this one was just perfect. And I felt so strong. You know, I know it's only 3 hours, but I've got this leg imbalance. I need to build the muscles up. And it was still hard, but I was just so proud that I managed to keep something back and stay at that low heart rate and absolutely nail the time, like by 19 seconds over 3 hours. That's amazing, really. And yeah, just to have that in the tank for the last 6 miles and even increase that for the last 3 miles, 2.5 miles, just really chuffed with how I did that. It's been 5 days now. Actually, this is day 6 since that half marathon. I felt great. The next day I actually did martial arts training on the Monday night, so the race was on Sunday. And although I was a little bit nervous about doing it, it was fine. And then this week on Thursday night, I went to go out for my first sort of walk. I thought I'd do a half an hour, I thought I'd do a 45-minute walk, maybe half an hour, just to see how the muscles are. And I went out walking at a fair pace for me, and I knew within a couple of minutes I was going to try running on it, so I actually set my Garmin to do a 30-minute zone 2 run, and yeah, it was fine. It's absolutely fine, and the sort of pace I did on that was not far over 13-minute miles, sort of 13-minute 10 seconds per mile in zone 2, which is, you know, good for me. And yeah, felt good afterwards. Walked 6 miles yesterday, albeit on the golf course, so there's breaks in between. Yeah, and I feel good. So now what I've got to do is get back, I did it last night, get back into my sort of rehab exercises I've got for my Achilles and my ankle area, calf, knee. I've got my mobility exercises for the whole leg and lower back. So there's one lower back exercise, hamstrings, glutes, quads, hip flexors. That's it. There's like 6 exercises in that. All they're mainly for from the knee up to the lower back, and just get those all as mobile as I can. Those muscles ready to work, because they are like blocks. They're just stiff as a board. I shall do that for 2 weeks. Do a bit of walking, maybe just do a couple of runs. Try and get some aerobic training in now. So I need to exercise bike, elliptical, rower, swimming. Try not to do too much of that as running, because I'm not ready for that yet, really. Even though I did the half marathon, I think I'll just keep getting niggles. Yeah, and then I'll start thinking about probably another half marathon in, like, I don't know. I've got to see how it goes, but 6 months kind of maximum, I'm thinking, although it's winter. And start thinking about, I need to speak to the physio again, but start thinking about how I can push to improve a time in that, and start building towards this 100 miles. So it'll be a half marathon. I'd sort of like to be able to do one in 2 hours 15, something like that. I don't know if that's possible for me, but then, you know, have a pace that I can run at, that then I can start just training to be able to hold that pace for 26 miles, then 50 miles, and then 100 miles. And obviously that's going to take a long time, but it's pulling me in the right direction. It's making me stronger all over, especially in the mind. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm going to keep training, see the physio again in 3 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and yeah, just try not to get injured again. If you've listened to all that, thanks so much for listening. And if you've got any questions, like, I am really a terrible runner with terrible aerobic fitness, and I'm just going to keep going and going and going and improving in all those areas. So hopefully you can, like, subscribe, follow along, join me in the journey. If you're doing things similar, then I'd love to follow you as well, and we can learn about our bodies and our minds together and progress. Thanks for watching. Speak to you again soon.